Hello and welcome to today's webinar on making sense of conversational AI. My name is Kerry Robinson. I'm VP of Conversational AI at Waterfield Technologies. I started in this field probably at the age of 10 when my mum and dad bought me a ZX Spectrum, a little microcomputer, and I plugged this box in the back of it that allowed it to speak, and it was the coolest thing. And then I tried to make it listen and understand, and I realized that was a much harder challenge, but it really drove my passion to make tech more human. Just last year, my company VoxGen became part of Waterfield Technologies, and now we have a broader capability, a bigger team to help deliver delightful experiences and get maximum ROI from conversational AI. This presentation will run for around 30 minutes. Then we have another 15 minutes at the end to answer any questions you have. So feel free to use the chat, get the conversation started, share your comments and questions, and stay around at the end where we can revisit or go deeper on any areas that interest you. It's great to have you here, so let's dive in. First, a funny story. I once sneezed so loudly, I got a high noise warning on my Apple Watch. But I want to talk about a different kind of noise today. You see, there's so much vague hand waving around what conversational AI is and what it's capable of. I think there are just too many big promises that X or Y platform is the best, that if you just plug in the right AI technology, your customer experience will be incredible. In this session, I'm going to cut through the noise and share with you my framework for thinking about conversational AI, how it fits into the overall contact center ecosystem, how to think about platform choice, and how to make the most out of your investments in this space. Now, the problem with running a webinar like this is there's just such a range of different experience levels on the call. Now, some of you may already be thinking this way. Maybe you're already doing the right things. And if so, congratulations. It's great to have people like you pushing this industry forward. While I might not have much to teach you in terms of what to do, I'm hopeful you'll learn some new ways of communicating what you do and why you do it. For others, you may just be starting to think about conversational AI, or maybe you've made some progress and you're looking to up your game. I'm hoping this webinar will cut through the noise and empower you to take control and build the foundations for your success in this area. Now, just so I can get a feel for where you're all at, let's do a quick poll. Where are you on your conversational AI journey? Just pick one of these from the poll that's on the screen now. Are you new to conversational AI? Maybe you've had some successes and you're looking to scale up. Perhaps you're disappointed with the experience or the return on investment and you want to get more out. Or perhaps you're an expert and you just joined this webinar to troll me. Either way, it's totally fine. I'll give you another 30 seconds or so just to put your responses in, and then we'll have a quick reflection on that and get started. So good, I can see the votes coming in. Most of you voted now. I'll just give a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds for anyone else who wants to vote. All right, let's send the poll there and I'll share the results. So, quite an interesting split here. We have got quite a lot of people, the vast majority actually, who are new to conversational AI. So you're in the right place. I'm going to give you a framework that will really help you think about this, I think, in the right way. Some of you have had some success and looking to scale up. Well, congratulations. Great to hear. Again, we're going to talk about how to maximize the ROI. So I think you can achieve more here. Some disappointed with your experience, but not too many. So that's a great result. Pleased with that. And we've got at least some experts here who've come to troll me. So welcome, everyone. I'll stop that poll now and let's dive in. So what is conversational AI? Some people say it's natural language, that it's when you just let customers say whatever they like. Some say no, it's self-learning, or it's a replacement for a clunky old IVR. Some say it's like Alexa or Siri or Google Assistants. I don't think any of these are quite right. I think the best way to think of conversational AI is a whole range of people, processes, and tools and technology that lets computers speak human. I'm going to dive into this later on. Where does conversational AI fit in? Does it replace agents? I hear people say, we want to automate 100% of contact. Really? I mean, why would you want to do that? Humans are great at some types of contact. Or, I want everything on every channel. Why? I mean, I know this is the omni-channel mantra, but is that really what your customers want? And then, it's a replacement for your clunky old IVR. But IVR doesn't have to be clunky. I think this is just marketing spin. It's an IVA, not an IVR. It's an intelligent virtual assistant, not interactive voice response. It's just marketing. I think the way to think about it is that you don't just have a piece of technology, you have a bot workforce that complements your human workforce. And we're going to talk about that later too. What's the best platform? We've got the old guard like Cisco, Genesys, and Avaya. We've got the newer cloud contact centers like Twilio or Amazon Connect. There's the traditional speech recognition solutions like Nuance and Lumen Vox. But then we've got the new kids on the block. We've got Dialogflow and IBM Watson and Amazon Lex. And then, how much coding are we going to do? Are we going to do no code? Is it a low code solution you want? Or are we going to do some real code here? There's no right answer to this, but I think the best way to look at it is whichever platform supports your languages, your use cases, and your business case and culture. We're going to go through that as well later on. Finally, how do I get maximum ROI? Maybe just pay for what you use. You maybe use in-house capabilities. You don't have to pay partners. What about empowering the business to build the bots they need? I mean, we're creating self-service here. Shouldn't we allow the business to self-serve? What about regular speech tuning? That can help. And obviously a move to the cloud, will help potentially as well with your costs. And I mean, you can just pay for what you use and scale up quickly. But what I found over the years to be the biggest impact on ROI, all of these things are good. All of these things have an impact. But the biggest impact that I've seen has to be to implement a bot management system. And I'll talk about exactly what that is later on. We're going to cut through the noise. We're going to talk about what is conversational AI. How does it fit in? We're going to talk about picking the right platform, and we're going to figure out how to maximize ROI. So let's start with what is conversational AI. And there's no real right answer here. I mean, feel free to put in the chat, what is conversational AI for you? Why are you doing that? I've been on a journey. Over 20 years ago, I did a master's in AI, and I used to think that unless it's a machine learning algorithm, it's not AI. And, over time, I realized that, that probably wasn't the best approach. And I think what was most helpful for me was to think about it more in this way. And I like this quote from Merriam-Webster, that the AI is the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. And what behavior more intelligent than language, on which much of society and our successes has been built? But note that this doesn't say anything about the tech. It's all about behavior. And I think that's important. The one thing we know is the tech we're using tomorrow won't be the same as the tech we use today. So let's focus on the behavior. And then we can think about all the different types of tech we can use to create that behavior. I find this representation a good way of thinking about it. So on the vertical axis at the bottom, we've got things that we design, at the top, things that we learn from data. And at the horizontal axis on the left, I've got simple processes, and the right, we've got complex processes. At the top right, we've got strong AI. I've got a picture here of HAL from 2001, A Space Odyssey. That's a film from over 50 years ago that imagined AI that could talk and interact and think like a human, even a superhuman. It doesn't exist. Many in the field believe that the techniques, the algorithms, the way that we build AI today will have to change fundamentally to get anywhere near strong AI. So we're working on the left-hand side of the dotted line here. But the great news is that there's a lot we can do here. In the bottom left-hand corner, we've got simple DTMF touch tone call routing systems or confirmations by SMS. They can be really powerful. At the top left, we've got what I call natural language front ends. So that could be the natural language call routing system you have in front of an IVR that gets customers to the right place by just asking them, how can I help you? It could be the front end on a knowledge base where you ask questions or agents ask questions and it bring up appropriate knowledge base articles. The key thing is that we're going from a simple input, what customer wants or question, to a single output or simple output. The right destination, the right agent, or the right self-service module, or the right knowledge base article. Down at the bottom right-hand corner, we've got conversational self-service. So these are complex processes like authentication, payments, filing an insurance claim. These are complex experiences that we might be able to learn from data, and Google have got some really interesting research at the edges here where they're starting to build dialogue from data, but it's a long way out, and we can't use that in a contact center right now. But we don't need to, because we can design really great self-service. I think really what's pushing us closer to this dotted line is things like the general virtual assistants, like I like to call them, like Alexa, Google, and Siri, where essentially they've got a natural language front end that figures out what the customer or the user wants, and then they're crowdsourcing from millions of developers all the applications that can help them. And they're using big data and small data, that information they hold in your account about you, to really personalize the experience. And I think that starts getting us closer to the feeling of strong AI, even though we don't really have the underlying research and technology to do that yet. The great thing is, on the left-hand side of that dotted line, there's so much we can do. But how does this conversational AI fit into the overall contact center and the customer experience ecosystem? I think a good way of thinking about it is like this. So at the front line of customer experience, we've got humans and we've got bots. And behind them, we've got a platform, usually multiple platforms that are helping them, making the best they can be. Customer service strategy is answering the question, what should humans do? What should the bots do? And what channels should they operate on them? And then we've got human workforce optimization or workforce engagement management. And that's the platforms and the tools and techniques that help human agents be the best they can be and deliver the best possible customer service. And on the right here, we've got conversational AI, or something that's what I sometimes like to call bot workforce optimization. And interestingly, we're starting to see the emergence of some systems which I would call AI-assisted agents or agent-assisted bots, where the AI is listening in to the conversation that a human is having, either via voice or via chat, and spotting what's going on and trying to provide suggestions to the human, which might be template responses or processes that they need to follow, or not knowledge-based articles. And the great thing about this is that when the human engages with this and chooses to use that template response, that tells us that we got it right, that the AI got it right. And if we get enough of those, then that can point us to the opportunity to create new self-service within the bot. So we've got bots helping humans and humans helping bots. In this presentation, we're going to focus on conversational AI. And let's start with the platform first. How do we pick the right platform? Now, when I'm working with someone who's trying to pick a platform, we all want this great outcome. We know we like the kind of experience we want, but I think you need to understand what's going on under the hood. So I'll talk them through the steps that are actually going on inside a great conversational AI experience. So here's the anatomy of a dialogue. Our customer calls up or accesses the chat channel and says, someone just drove into my car. What are we going to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is hear what they say. That's speech to text or automatic speech recognition, ASR, you might have heard it called. That just takes the speech signal and turns it into text. In the case of a chatbot, we don't even need to do this because we're starting with chat. But then we need to interpret, what does that text mean? That's natural language understanding, or NLU. That's taking the text and turning it into a representation that means something to the system. But then we've got to decide how to act. That's dialogue management. And I think this is often overlooked. That's using all the information we have to decide, what am I going to do next? How can I be smart, helpful, and resourceful in responding to this customer? And of course, we've got to respond. And typically that means using text to speech, which takes text and turns it into an audio signal. It might be concatenating a number of different audio recordings together that sounds really natural. Or in the case of a chatbot, it's just stringing together a text sentence, but we might be adding visuals or buttons as well. And then we need to respond. Sorry to hear that. Was it the Chevy? That feels really natural. And why is that? Well, it's because we're using data to drive this interaction. To make the system seem really smart, you need to use good data and APIs that support the natural language understanding and dialogue management. As I mentioned, I think dialogue management, and particularly how we use data to drive the experience, is one of the most overlooked parts of conversational AI. Most of the innovations in conversational AI in the past decade have been to improve speech to text, natural language understanding, text to speech. But dialogue, I think, is where the magic happens. Deciding what to do next, how to respond. That's so important. I mean, the other areas are important, but dialogue management is what makes your conversational AI seem really smart, helpful, and resourceful. And we actually did an experiment with a large national retailer in the United States and found that customers preferred a system that used data to anticipate their needs, even compared to the best natural language front end. That's the importance of data. Now, we can take these four elements, the four parts of the anatomy of a dialogue, and use it to help us make good decisions in picking the right platform. Rather than just looking at it as a whole, we can break it down, and if we've got a short list maybe of 3 platforms, we can look at what is its capability in terms of speech to text, natural language understanding, dialogue management, and text to speech. And I think it's important to compare a few different platforms and include the one you have. It may be more capable than you think. And this is what it takes to select a platform that's going to deliver a great experience. Now, maybe you've heard those ads that go, but wait, there's more. Same here, there's more. We've got to think about the different use cases you need to support, because different platforms have different capabilities for different use cases. Intent capture is understanding, what it is that someone's contacting you about. But then you've got to do identification and verification, or authentication. And you need to think about, what tokens you're going to use there. Are you using a zip code, or are you using an alphanumeric account number, or maybe an email address? Different platforms have got different capabilities there. And then, of course, you've got self-service. What are the important things that you need to handle in self-service? Are there product lists you've got to handle, or particularly complex names of things that the system needs to understand? And then you've got something like payments, where you've got a whole new set of problems around compliance with PCI DSS standards. But wait, there's more. You've got to consider the different languages. We're all talking in English here, but quite often we need to cover Spanish as well, or maybe French Canadian, or if this is a global solution, we'll need to consider other languages like Mandarin. We've worked with customers who have 12, even 14 different languages they need to support. But wait, there's even more. We've also got to consider which will integrate well with what you've already got, and how deep into the code you're prepared to get. And a vendor presentation or demo isn't really going to help you here. You need to go really deep. Try building yourself, or work with your partner to build them. get your vendor to build a proof of concept to demonstrate that the platform will work for you. The perfect platform will get it right across the anatomy of dialogue, the use cases that matter to you, the languages that matter to you, and the development approach you're happy with. But the reality is, right now, no platform can do it all. So you might need to combine different systems or even focus on certain use cases or languages that will work with the systems that are available to you. In summary, don't worry about what these platforms can do. Focus on what you need them to do. And to start, why not see what you can achieve with your current platform and build from there as the use cases and languages demand it? So let's talk about that. How do you get maximum ROI out of whatever platform you're working with? I think it's important to understand some key differences. The first is that we learn to interact with web and mobile interfaces, but we already learned language and we can't unlearn it. Let me explain what I mean. Web and mobile, they do use physical metaphors like touch screens and inertial scrolling. We've got folders and we've got desktops, but it's a learned behavior. It's different with language. And I love this quote from Harvard professor Steven Pinker, who says, humans can no more suppress their ability to learn and use language than they can suppress the instinct to pull a hand back from a hot surface. I've got a quick example of that for you here. Here's the same number, but the way it's said has a big impact on how easy it is to understand. If your system says 179250, it's really hard to take that in and understand what you just heard. If it goes 179250, okay, it's really difficult to hear that and take it in, and you can read it. But if you use a more comfortable language pattern like 179250, it's much easier for human beings to understand it. So we've got to consider the human language for instinct and build around that. The other key difference is I think we compare web and mobile with physical objects, but our expectations are very different with IVR voice and chatbots. I think we compare them with humans. And here's why. So I took these screenshots from the Home Depot website, and you can see in the top left, they've got their mega menu there. That's a little bit like a signpost in a supermarket. In the middle, you've got their tile calculator to figure out how many tiles I need for my job. That's a bit like a form. And on the top right, you've got their catalogue of different types of tiles. That's a bit like a physical catalogue. But it's different with conversational AI. IVR voice and chatbots build on human interaction. We call an IVR using a telephone. We interact with chatbots via messaging. These were channels that we've used to interact with human beings and still use to interact with human beings. Our expectations are different. Even the smart speakers that are popping up in the corner of our room, I think they're much more like calling to a friend or a family member in your house than a physical object. And so our expectations are very different. Our expectations are set by human capability, not the capability of physical objects. So to summarize, we learn graphical interfaces from devices that use physical metaphors, but we learn conversation from humans and we cannot unlearn it. And we expect graphical interfaces to be useful and understandable, but we expect conversational partners to be more like humans, to be smart, helpful, and resourceful. What does this mean for conversational AI? Well, I think it means we've got a really high bar. We've got to model human language and conversational norms, and we've got to be smart, helpful, and resourceful. That is such a high bar. I mean, how do we do that? As we talked about already, strong AI doesn't exist. So I think the solution is to recognize that with bots, you don't just have a technology, you have a bot workforce. Your bots are working alongside your humans. The secret is to figure out your customer service strategy, to figure out what your bots can do well. What can they do at a human or even superhuman level? That's why I call it HR for AI. You see, it's not about having a piece of technology. You've got a bot workforce that works alongside your human workforce. And your bot workforce needs leading and managing, just like your agents do. But so often that doesn't happen. And that's where the bot management system comes in. It starts with bot analytics at the bottom there. So dive into the data and see what conversations your bots are having, how are they performing. And unlike human agents, who if they're having a bad day or they're getting frustrating calls, they'll talk to their manager. Your bots will just keep talking, delivering a terrible customer experience at scale. You need to dive into the data and see what's going on, and then use that to drive bot strategy. So what could you do? What should you do? What's it worth? And then that can put guardrails around conversation design where you're creating experiences that really leverage that human language instinct and really delight customers, that hit that bar of smart, helpful, and resourceful. This continues. Once we've designed this solution, we can implement it and deploy it. Customers interact with it, and then we get more data. And so we get this virtuous circle where our bots can get better and better, just like we try to constantly improve the working environment and the success of our agents. But where does this start? I think it starts with discovery, which is a process of looking at the data, understanding what's going on, not just within your bots, but also in the contact center, understanding the strategy of the business, what they're trying to achieve, what do you value, and then using this to build a vision and a business case and a plan, and bringing that to life with a high level design, a picture, a vision of what will it be like when you deliver bots of this kind. And that's the starting point for the bot management system. Now, I'm not here to sell you, but I did want to share, a couple of examples of where this has really worked. You can see it's just not concept; it really is practical. This is one from Bindi Patel, a product manager at a US national retailer. She said they're different. They're not pushing a platform or technology. The discovery was a cornerstone of our ability to progress so quickly. They guided us, educated us, and helped demonstrate what's possible. And here's another one from Dan Keller at a global sports retailer. They have a unique and thoughtful approach. It's not like, oh, this sounds good. It's a structured, data-driven process that delivers award-winning results. I've not seen anything like it. Just quickly bring this together. What's conversational AI? Is it natural language? Is it self-learning? Is it a replacement from clunky IVR? No, it's a whole range of people, process, tools, and technology that lets computers speak human. And where does it fit in? Does it replace agents? Is it everything on every channel? Is it replacing your clunky old IVR? No, it's a bot workforce that complements your human workforce. And what's the best platform? Twilio, Amazon Connect, Lumenvox, no code, low code? Whichever platform supports your use cases, business case, and culture. And how do I get maximum ROI? Do I go to the cloud? Is it in-house capability? Do I just pay for what I use? All those things help. But as I said, the thing that I've seen that have most impact is implementing a bot management system. So what next? Well, I really hope this session has helped you to think broadly about conversational AI technologies. I hope you realize that you've got a bot workforce that needs to complement your human workforce. It's just not a piece of technology. I'm hoping you'll consider leveraging the platform you have and upgrading if and when the use cases demand it. And I really implore you to implement a bot management system. That is what is going to have the biggest impact. And it doesn't matter what technology you got, it doesn't matter where you are, that's something you can start doing today. So, hopefully you found this presentation interesting. If you did and you want more, please reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll drop the link in the chat here. I post a lot about this area. I'd love to connect and chat. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want insights directly into your inbox, I do a weekly email. It's completely non-salesy. It's a bit of fun. It's educational, which really explores these concepts and many, many more within the space of conversational AI and contact center. So that's the end of the 30-minute presentation. If you do have a few more minutes, I'd love it if you could stay on. We've got a full 15 minutes now where we can dive a little bit deeper into anything that resonated, any questions you have, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. What questions we've got here? All right, we've definitely got a good few here. All right, so we've got one here. All good info. Now I know I need to start, but feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Where should I begin? Can you give me one or two simple action items? Yes, I can. You know, I think something that so few people do is actually put themselves in the position of a customer and call up their IVR or use their chatbot. I do believe that's where you need to start if you haven't done that already. If you want some help with that, we do have a checklist that, in fact, Angela, if you can put that into the chat, we have a checklist that you can use to guide you through that process of going through the experience and rating it in the different areas. That's a really, really great place to start. I think the other place to start would be, why are you doing this? And it sounds a bit broad and general, but you have a choice. You can change your processes to reduce the amount of contact you get. You can put more agents in. You can do workforce optimization and get more out of your agents, or you could build bots. So there's all sorts of things you can do, but it's all driven by what you're trying to achieve. So start with the question of, what do we value? What are we trying to achieve here? And it normally breaks down into we want more profits. Ultimately, that's what businesses are driven by. But that's broken down into more revenue and lower costs. But then that breaks down into more revenue is often driven by loyalty and therefore experience, which can reduce churn. And actually also reduced costs can be driven through automation, but it's got to be the automation with the right kind of experience, which kind of takes us back to that to the review, checking out what your assistants are currently doing. So they would be the two things if you're just starting out that I would do. If you've got a system already, call it up, interact with it, and assess how it is, or if it's a chatbot, bring it up and interact with it. And even if you don't have a system, start with what you're trying to achieve. What is the business trying to achieve? What does good look like? If you want more on that, ask a deeper question in the chat or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to dive deeper with you offline. Okay, I've got another good question here. What is really involved with bot management? Where do I find the data I need to evaluate this, and how often should this be reviewed? Brilliant question. This is a great one. So I've got all sorts of experience of doing this, and my team do too. And I realize it's difficult. So to start with, you probably don't have the data you need. So you just need to be resourceful. But we're smart human beings. We're capable of being resourceful. So pull whatever data you can get from your IVR or chatbot systems if you have them in place now. Pull the information that you have from your contact center reports to see, where does the volume lie, and that's the starting point in terms of analytics, understanding what's going on, and that really drives everything else. But it has to be done in relationship to the strategy. So that kind of connects to the answer to the previous question. Is this data is good. It'll give you a feel for what's going on, but you won't know whether it's okay or can be improved until you really know what you're trying to achieve. And to do that, you need to understand what the business needs, what your customers need, the technical environment you're working within, and how to align those in a vision for your solution. Because ultimately, that is what's going to drive the bot management system. The bot management system is constantly trying to iterate and improve on the vision that discovery sets out. So you do need to do some kind of discovery process. We do have some blogs on that. I've got a blog on the 8 steps to build a brilliant bot strategy, so we can maybe drop that in the chat, or again reach out on LinkedIn, and would be happy to talk about that. You know, we do have services here we can do to help you, if the blog and some of the webinars we do aren't enough to support you. So there's another part of that, which was how often should this be reviewed? That's a good question. I think the basic answer to this is it depends on your cadence of delivery. So a lot of organisations we work with, once we embed the bot management system, we've done the discovery, we get started. You know, there's a cadence of delivery. Maybe they're an agile organisation, they're using Safe Agile or something like that, and they will look at the data after each release, and that data drives the strategic sort of prioritization for the next release, and then drives the design process for that next release. So if you're an agile organization, you're working that way, you should do it after each agile release into production. If you're not in the process of constantly updating your systems, especially you should be, but you know, sometimes you've got other priorities. You know, things do change, and so I think ideally monthly, at least quarterly, you should be looking at how your bots are performing, because the business changes, customers change, products change, processes change, and if you don't look at it, you can get what I call IVR rot or chatbot rot, where it was great when it first went in, but over time all these different things change, and it starts getting worse. Or even you know, what accelerates IVR and chatbot rot is ad hoc changes. People making all these different changes. Oh, I just need this. Add this item into the menu. Oh, just add this into the chatbot. And if you're not looking at the data, then the impacts of those can be really, really bad and lead to a terrible experience. So I have the question here of how does culture play into platform selection? Can you elaborate? Yes. So I could be much more specific about that. I think my experience of the dozens, hundreds of organisations that we've worked with is that they find themselves on a spectrum between do it for me, which is like, I've got a problem, just design and build this for me, to do it with me. Oh, I want to kind of get a bit more involvement now. I want to make small changes myself, to do it yourself, do it myself. Which is like, don't need you anymore, just keep the lights on, but I'm going to make all the changes. And people oscillate like that. And so I think it's important to understand where you are. You might be, and this is the point, you might start in a situation where you're, doing a new platform upgrade, or you've maybe done that IVR and chatbot checklist and realize you've got some problems, you need someone to help you fix it. But then, you want to take on more yourselves and maybe build up some internal capability. And what we've seen a lot, because we do training and coaching as well around that to help people build up this capability. But what we have seen is that this is a really hot area. And so you build up a really good internal team, and then your competitors see that and then they'll poach them. And then suddenly you need a bit more support. So I think one way to look at it is how much do you want to do yourself versus get support from outside vendors. And then that plays specifically in the platform, that plays into questions like, how much of this, am I going to do myself? And therefore, what tools am I use to do it? So there are, some low code or even no code platforms that allow business analysts and designers to create systems. Others require all code. I think the reality is it's I've never seen a no code system that can really deliver really good sophisticated experiences at enterprise scale. You always have to do some code, and what can happen is that those low code or no code systems can constrain you, because it makes doing the easy bits easy, but it makes the harder bits even harder. So really the point about culture was, think about how important it is for you to own the delivery of this? And are you prepared to build up the capability in-house, both in terms of design and in terms of development and quality assurance, around the platform? If you are, maybe pick a platform that supports the languages that your teams already use, or has a low or no code approach, so that it's easier for you to do that. But always recognize that this is a very specialist area and it's changing very, very rapidly. So I really understand the desire of organizations to want to do more of this themselves. Customer experience, conversational AI is core to your brand, your product, but it is super complex. So just think carefully about how much you want to take on here. Do you want to build up a conversational AI competency internally, as in we're going to build it all, or are you going to find the right partners and build up sufficient understanding to be able to work with and direct those partners, but you're prepared to leave the implementation to others? Okay, that's a good one. Now, what else have we got? Someone's asked, what is the advantage of hybrid cloud and on-premise solution? It's a really good question. It's one that's very, very difficult to answer in the abstract. The answer is it depends. Everyone we speak to is either in the cloud or on a journey towards the cloud. I think there is a recognition that it's sometimes at some scales it's not cheaper to move to the cloud, but there are so many other advantages in terms of scalability and ramp up, and that's just where the industry is going. But you don't need to do it all in one. So there's certainly a possibility of having your contact center ACD like on-prem, and still reach out to cloud platforms to do the conversational AI pieces, and that can be quite a good stepping stone towards moving your contact center to the cloud at a later date. Another good one here: what level of call volume is needed to obtain a return on investment? So my rule of thumb here has always been you need about 1 million contacts a year to really get a strong business case for conversational AI. But to be honest with you, I've seen that changing with the impact to working patterns, with the impact to the contact center industry, the great resignation, as they call it. I've got customers we speak to, and I'm like, why would you want to automate that? You don't have enough call volume for that. Just get the agents you need and use workforce optimization to empower them. They're like, I would if I could, but I just can't get agents for this. We work in an area where there just aren't enough agents. Now you've got options to offshore and things like that, but if you want to keep it in house, sometimes it used to be that the conversational AI was always competing with the cost, the kind of the marginal cost of an agent. But I think nowadays, quite often, conversational AI is the only option to reduce the recruitment burden in this environment we find ourselves now, where it can be really difficult to get the agents you need. Okay, we've got 1 more minute. Just curious, how long do you think it will take before the industry produces strong AI like Hal? Good one. So HAL was invented 50 years ago, and we're nowhere near it. Something really resonates with me here is like we always underestimate the progress that can be achieved in a couple of years, and we underestimate the progress that can be achieved in 10 years or more. And we are seeing real advances in AI. We had a lot of stasis for many years, but we've the last sort of decade we've seen some real advances. It's all driven by cloud computing and being able to recruit massive amounts of data, massive amounts of processing power to build these models. That has certainly reduced the cost of deploying complex natural language applications. but they're still the same algorithms that I learned like 25 years ago when I did my master's in AI. So look, I don't have the answer to this. If I was going to guess, I would say that we will be doing less design of the detailed design of systems in 10 years than we are doing now, because more of that will be learned from data, kind of that surface interaction of how humans interact. But those big questions that bot management deals with in terms of how are my bots performing? What could I do? What should I do? What's it worth? And how do I craft an experience that feels comfortable and smart and helpful and resourceful for my customers? We are many decades away from that. So with that, we have reached the end of the time. Thank you so much for all of you who shared questions. If I didn't get to them, I am sorry. If we've got your contact details, I'll try and reach out to you directly and give you a response, or at least use it as food for thought in the upcoming weekly emails. So just as a reminder, if you haven't already, please reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn, sign up for my weekly email, and let's keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for attending.